Well, I'm afraid it's a bit of a dark and gloomy day today, but we've got something really good to talk about. It's a sort of cross between the French language cinema that I'm very fond of and action films involving cars. It's the 1998 film Ronin, which stars Robert DeNiro as Sam, Jean Reno as Vincent, Natascha McElhone as Deirdre, Stellan Skarsgard. Gosh, I had to look that pronunciation up, by the way. Doesn't look anything like you'd imagine it to be. Sean Bean as Spence, Jonathan Pryce as Seamus O'Rourke, and Skip Sidduff as Larry. The idea behind Ronin, and I had to check this again myself, is that a group of former Special Forces operatives from different intelligence agencies around the world have been tasked with retrieving a suitcase. Nobody knows what's in the suitcase. For some reason, the action set in France, although I think John Frankenheimer, who's the director, who did things like The French Connection back in the 70s, he said the action could be anywhere. It just happens to be in France, which is a bit weird. I don't know why he wanted to film in France, but he did, and that's great because he films in places like Paris and Nice, and it looks fantastic. There are some fantastic car chases as well, particularly one lengthy one in Nice and a very lengthy one in Paris, which sort of ends the film and is known for being very, very good. Whether the rest of the film itself is any good, I don't really know. It's a little bit tricky to say. Critics at the time were quite divided as well. It's not like this is an opinion which has particularly changed over the years. I think I'm going to have to watch this again myself and really get to grips with it. But yeah, the idea is, as I said, a group of special forces, ex-special forces operatives from around the world are recruited by a mystery person to get hold of a suitcase, a briefcase, whatever you want to call it. It's probably a briefcase, and it contains something that they've been asked to get of high value off a convoy, and they successfully retrieve the briefcase in the first car chase in Nice. But one of them, Gregor, I'm not going to say the actor's name again because it's very difficult, he goes off on his own, and the alliances keep shifting until the climactic car chase in Paris, and then there's a scene at the end of the film at a skating rink. I think that's really all I have to say about what happens in it. There is a cameo by Michael and Michelle Lonsdale, depending on what you prefer. He uses both names. The chap who played Hugo Drax in Moonraker. But let's get into the cars, because I think that's what you're all here for. The first car chase in Ronin concerns a 1996 or possibly 97 or 98. It's not entirely clear, actually. Audi S8, the D2 model. It's driven by Larry, and he uses that car to be the sort of main chase car for getting hold of this particular briefcase. It goes a little bit wrong, and they have to end up using a different car to sort of actually retrieve it. But that Audi S8 looks fantastic. It's a beautiful colour. They did use several cars in that. Sometimes I think you can see differences in them. One of the main things you realise with Ronin, the way they filmed it, was that they actually used left and right-hand drive cars. So that would mean if you see Robert De Niro driving a car, a left-hand drive car, because we're in France, he could drive that car quite safely because he wasn't actually driving it. The person who was driving it was sitting on the right-hand side of the car, in a right-hand drive car, and he was a stuntman. Just the way that they filmed it makes you kind of, actually really appreciate little tricks like that, and it works quite well. I'm gonna have to tell you what my favourite car in Ronin is a bit later. So we've got the Audi S8, And another car that's used actually in that same sequence is a 1976 Mercedes-Benz 450 SEL 6.9. And that is a superb car. I think they used one of those to film the wonderful short film Cité de Rendezvous, which was filmed in Paris in 1976. The sound you hear in Cité de Rendezvous is of a different car, but the actual one they used to film the sequence is one of these, a W116 Mercedes-Benz 450 SEL 6.9. That car gets really trashed in the chase in Ronin, though, and at the beginning of the sequence with that car, I think they have CGI post-production smoke in it, which is completely unnecessary. It looks silly. But yes, the sound that car makes. I used to think back in the day when I was watching Ronin that car was completely out of place and it was a pile of rubbish. And then I realised it had a 6.9 litre V8 engine in it. And that changed my opinion of it somewhat. In the second chase that happens in Ronin, or rather the sort of one I think people remember even more than the first one in Nice, the one in Paris, is between two factions of the operatives. We've got Deirdre and Seamus, who were using a BMW 5 Series. Now, there's a huge amount of debate in the automotive community online as to how many BMWs they used and what types. All I can tell you is that they are post-1991 E34 5 Series cars. The main one I think they used was a 535i Sport, which was actually right-hand drive. But there was loads of others. We've got M5s, 520i's being sort of suggested, and you see M badges and placed correctly and incorrectly, and M5 wheels. My only suspicion is that they used an enormous amount of different cars, and we can actually date one of them because of obviously the technique that they used, using the right-hand drive car with a fake left-hand drive steering wheel. It was a 1991 BMW 535i Sport, H527EKJ. I'm sure Mr. Woolard from Matt Beamer would be able to actually tell you a bit more about these cars. He's very fond of them. But yes, we'll go on down to the next one, which was a 1996 Peugeot 406 V6. Again, several different cars were used. I don't know if all of them were V6s. John Frankenheimer has specifically said that when they filmed the cars, they did record the engine notes of them. And I've heard the engine notes of a V6 and a 2-litre 4-cylinder Peugeot 406 of this period. And I can't really say which one it was that they recorded. I suppose they had some V6s at least, because this has got the V6 wheels on it. But yeah, Robert DeNiro and Jean Reno, they drive the 406 to chase a BMW, and they, I suppose, win the chase because a BMW ends up crashing, and they don't. Simple as that. Now, with the big chase that happens in the south of France against the Audi S8 and Mercedes-Benz W116, there are a number of, they're not really antagonist cars, because Ronin's quite unique in that the main people we see are sort of villains. They're sort of mercenaries doing work for cash, and, you know, they end up sort of, I suppose, really kind of coming up against each other. It's not so much that actually there are sort of good guys and bad guys. It's more that actually you sort of are guided towards who you want to win. So the people who are transporting the briefcase originally in the south of France are doing it in a convoy of 4 different cars. The car that the briefcase, I think, is actually in, if I remember this correctly, is a 1995 Citroen XM. It's a very nice colour, actually. I don't know if they used a V6 version. I don't really have any information on that, but the car actually was also definitely played by more than one different example, because on some shots you see the car as a pre-facelift as an 89 model, and on some you see it's the post-facelift one. So they clearly used lots of them. Same thing with the Peugeot 605s. 605s are supposed to be escorting the XM in the convoy, with the chap who's, you know, got the briefcase handcuffed to his wrist, as in most of these films and television programs. And they are a variation between 1990 605s, and one is supposed to be a facelift, so it's a 95. Although, how many of those they used, I really don't know. It is a very well choreographed and exciting chase. I used to have a French dub of Ronin for some reason. I don't know why. I think when I was at university, doing French language and doing German language, I had a French copy of Ronin because I had to use it in one of the lectures that I had, and I think I actually put the French dub on, because it was an English DVD but with a French dub, so I put the French dub onto and then put it onto a videotape so I could show it in class. It's the sort of thing we used to do back in the early 2000s. The car actually that they use, well, it's not really a car, it's a van, but the vehicle they use to end the chase with the briefcase is actually a 1995 Peugeot Expert. That's what they use at the end. Not particularly fussed about those things one way or the other. They're not the most exciting things. They're just the Euro vans. But yes, I've just provide it for the sake of completeness. Another car that's used, it's a bit more of the kind of thing I quite like. I don't know why I like them, but there's a 1992 Renault Safrane RXE in Ronin, and it's really nice. It doesn't get involved in any chases as far as I know, but that is a rare car these days, particularly in this country. You don't see them anymore, and the RXE was the sort of top of the line one. I don't know whether it's got the V6 in it, this particular one, or not, but that is a nice looking car. I really like those Safranes. Another car that is driven by Vincent Jean Renault is a 1992 Volkswagen Golf Mark III. It looks to me like a CL, but I don't know precisely. The trim levels in France and Britain were a bit different, I think. It's not very exciting, but it is actually held up by gunpoint, so I suppose that's one thing. And then they go and see the lovely Michael or Michelle Lonsdale. One of the really strange things about Ronin is that the traffic cars they use for impact and things like that are quite sort of inconsistent. It's not a load of kind of cars that you'd expect to find in a scrapyard. Some of them are brand new, and some of them aren't. So, for example, in one scene, there's a 1996 Citroen Saxo VTS. They could have used a base model Saxo if, Peugeot Citroen had been supplying a lot of cars to them. And it looks like from the list that I've given you that they did supply at least some cars to the production. So the Saxo that you see, why they had a VTS, maybe it was a car that was like a prototype and they couldn't actually sell it to the public or something. I don't know. Excuse me. But yeah, if you want to see a crash VTS, then Ronin's your film. Another car that's used by Gregor, again, I'm not going to say the actor's name again, is a 1990 Jeep Cherokee XJ 4-litre Limited with the wonderful AMC 6-litre engine. Nice colour as well on that car. They didn't sell XJ Cherokees in this country until a bit later, about 1993, 1994. So it's a little bit older, that, and they might have sold them in France, I think, from the 80s onwards. Another car that's used in the accident, I think, in the Pont de la Tunnel, in Paris is a 1986 Renault 21. It's another car that I kind of quite like. I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of French mass market cars, but for some reason I like the Safrane, I like the 21, particularly with facelifted 21. I don't know why. There's not many of them left, and the turbos were really fast. Another car that is a shame that gets destroyed, it's a French market Rover 800. It's a very old one, be sort of 86, 87, something like that. The saloon version, the just standard XX variant, that's used in one of the crashes. And the last vehicle that we see, because actually this was, I think, in the trailers and things like that, it is an enormous 1974 DAF lorry. I think it's a 2200, they call them. And it falls down onto a Peugeot 106. So the chap who's in that 106, he's pretty lucky that he didn't get completely crushed. So there we go. That was some of the cars used in Ronin. If we covered every car used in Ronin, we'd be here all day. Those are just some of the cars that grab my attention, particularly the main cast ones. I think I'm going to say the Safrane's probably my favourite. I really do quite like that. The Audi is good though as well, and that Mercedes is pretty fantastic. Is Ronin worth watching in 2020? Well, that's really up to you. I mean, if you like films that don't really make any sense in terms of the plot, and you really, really like some fantastic car chases, then it's for you. But if you really want it to make sense, and you're kind of into a lot of French culture and stuff, I don't think it's quite for you. It looks nice though, and nice director of photography who's used it. But anyway, that's enough for now. Thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Don't forget to like this video and to leave a comment below. Please visit my Facebook page, facebook.com/Lloyd Vehicle Consulting, and also my Instagram page, instagram.com/Lloyd_Vehicle_Consulting. Thank you.